For years, HTC has been known for making some of the most solid smartphones on the market. They made the first Android phone as well as Google's current flagship offering, the Pixel, but they never really got the praise and recognition that Apple, Samsung, Google, and now companies like Huawei and OnePlus get. But they've always been there. They're starting out 2017 by presenting users with the U, a very interesting name for a phone that targets a certain group of smartphone buyers, a group I feel that's been reduced to HTC fans only. But can the U Ultra draw in more customers with its rather large, boastful design? So let's talk about said design. The U Ultra is a big phone. Okay, let me say that again. The U Ultra is a big phone. It's got a 5.7-inch Super LCD display, and placed right above that is a 2-inch secondary display that we'll take a closer look at later. The thing about this screen is that at first I really liked it. But the more I looked at it, it seems as if there was some sort of sharpening filter applied. Text just kind of looks funny. I've seen worse though. It's also really easy to scratch. Our very own David Ruddock says he's never seen a screen on a phone that can scratch so easily. I guess we can thank the addition of Gorilla Glass 5. While Gorilla Glass 5 is more shatter resistant than Gorilla Glass 4, it appears to be less scratch resistant. Take your pick, I guess. And when I say this phone is a handful, I really mean it. To put things into perspective, this phone is actually taller and wider than the iPhone 7 Plus. But fans of big phones will easily feel at home here. Things like watching TV shows and movies and browsing the web are just awesome. Using 2 apps at once is great as well, thanks to Android Nougat. And speaking of Android Nougat, on top of that lies HTC Sense, which I'm totally cool with. It's a light enough skin so that it doesn't take away from Android. In fact, there's a good amount of stock Android left over throughout the UI. And it has some additional software features. One interesting thing to note is that although the software is light and HTC Sense is known for its speed, it lags quite a bit in the lock screen and in certain apps like Android Messages. That's definitely not something I expected to see on an HTC device. Quite disappointing. The U Ultra houses its fingerprint reader in what doubles as a capacitive home button flanked by capacitive recent apps and back buttons. That's the same layout as the OnePlus 3T. The fingerprint reader itself is pretty quick and accurate, but I just found the reader itself to be a little too small for my taste. That and just the placement of the button seemed a little out of place, but I eventually got used to it. Now, as far as hardware goes, HTC decided to break tradition and they went with the glass to cover the back instead of the usual unibody aluminum. Some may like this and some may not, and if you choose the right color, you can come away with an absolutely stunning phone. But after using the phone for a bit, its beauty will be replaced by a glorious set of smudges and fingerprints. Not to mention, scratching this thing isn't necessarily the hardest thing to accomplish. HTC thought of both of these things, and they included a microfiber cleaning cloth to keep the phone nice and shiny, and a hard shell case to protect from scratches. But that's the thing. The design is beautiful, no doubt, but most users will end up using a case or skin anyway. Speaking of things included in the box, you'll also find a pair of USB Type-C earbuds, which indicates the Ultra's lack of a headphone jack. The headphones are meh. Kind of muddy, and you know how bundled earbuds can get. I would just really prefer to have a headphone jack. This addition, or subtraction rather, really did confuse me. On one hand, I understand the whole wireless is the future thing, but the phone is also more than thick enough to accommodate a 3.5mm port. So it's like, why not, for those who haven't moved on yet? It's not like they were trying to save space for the battery or anything like that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Another thing I missed is HTC Boom sound. That was something that made HTC's One series so great with those stereo front-facing speakers. While the Ultra has somewhat of a stereo setup going on, it's just not as good. But it's better than it could be, I suppose. So what exactly does the U Ultra have going for it? Well, it's got this secondary screen that HTC is calling dual display, and if you've been paying attention to anything LG's been doing over the past couple years, this shouldn't be anything new to you. I do have to admit, it's a nice thing to have. Dual display gives you shortcuts to apps, contacts, it can display upcoming events, and even the weather forecast no matter what app you're using at the time. It's also a nice thing to have on hand when your device is not in use and you can get to setting toggles and of course check what time it is. It's a mini always on display. It's pretty neat. The phone also has a solid set of cameras. A 12-megapixel f1.8 main shooter with optical image stabilization, it sticks out like 2 sore thumbs, and a 16-megapixel selfie camera capable of 1080p video. I have to say, I was impressed with the results I got out of the cameras, but I probably set my expectations really low to start out with. Pictures did come out crisp and sharp with decent saturation as long as you don't mind red tinting, and low light performance was somewhat acceptable as well. The camera on this phone is definitely passable. Granted, some shots actually came out better than shots I got out of my Pixel XL. Didn't happen often enough though. Sure, the camera may not be as good as everyone else's, but hey, I don't think it's anything to sneeze at either. Sadly enough, however, the U Ultra itself might be something to sneeze at. In a very crowded smartphone world, HTC still has a chance to make some noise. But if you know anything about HTC, you'll know that they've been on the decline over the past few years, and the U Ultra continues that trend. Aside from its solid camera and big beautiful display, the phone doesn't really have anything that would make me want to purchase it. Some HTC diehards would undoubtedly attempt to justify the secondary display and that it's got more features than the Google Pixel, like expandable storage, and while those are nice things to have, a larger battery is something that should have been higher on the list. The U Ultra has a rather small 3000 mAh battery. While I can squeeze a day on a single charge, I know for a fact I should be making it through more. Thank goodness Quick Charge 3.0 is present. With a phone this big and a name like Ultra, surely they could have crammed some more battery under the hood. Wireless charging is also nowhere to be found, and that's something I expect nowadays with glass backs on phones. While not having it isn't a deal breaker, having it wouldn't be a bad thing either. Water resistance is also something I feel HTC should have equipped this phone with, and if they're gonna copy LG with a secondary display, they might as well just copy Apple, Samsung, LG again and waterproof the phone. Although a lot of users can live without these features, there's one major thing the HTC U Ultra lacks, and that's bang for your buck. The Ultra cost me a whopping $750. Okay, so that's fine, right? I mean, they're just trying to be competitive. And it's not like I'm asking the phone to wash my car and cook my breakfast either. But HTC isn't Apple. They're not Google. They're not Samsung. They can't just release something and have everyone flock to buy it. HTC clearly doesn't put a lot into marketing their phones either. So in that case, you can come to the conclusion that this phone is quite clearly not for the masses. It wasn't made to fit everyone. It seems to me that the U in U Ultra stands for an isolated group of, perhaps, HTC enthusiasts? So by now you may be wondering if this is a good phone and if it's worth buying. Yes, the U Ultra is a good phone. It's just not for me, and it's probably not for you either. There's no doubt that the phone looks pretty nice and the screen is great for media consumption, but if you're looking for a smartphone that can handle all your daily tasks, has a good set of cameras, and great battery life, I'd recommend the OnePlus 3T over this any day. It's over $300 less, has the same processor, it's faster, and it has 2 more gigabytes of RAM. The U Ultra as it stands isn't a bad phone by any means. It's just not for everyone, and I don't think you should buy it. Well, that about does it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to hit that like button, comment your thoughts on the U Ultra, the future of HTC, and also let me know your favorite HTC memory. Subscribe to the Android Police channel if you haven't already, but that does it for me. I'll talk to you guys later, and thanks for watching.